Hello and welcome to this year's Year 9 Essentials for Success programme.
Hello everyone, my name is Lucy and I'm the new chaplain for Christ the King Secondary School, and I'm going to lead us in a prayer now for the year ahead. So if we begin by reminding ourselves of the presence of God and saying, in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, Amen. Dear Lord, I ask for peace to fill each of us as we begin this new school year. I ask that you remind each of us that we are loved by you and that you will be with us. I pray for Mrs. Love and the senior leadership team, that you will guide them in their leadership of the school. I pray for all the staff and students, that we may work together in support of each other. And Lord, I ask for any upcoming challenging times, particularly exams, that you're with us and that you remind us that we are loved by you. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
So I wanted to begin by outlining the purpose of the presentation. And the main reason for this presentation is to give you some information, advice and guidance on how you can support your child both in the core subjects of English, Maths, Science and RE, but also with general revision. You may not be surprised to understand and know that parental involvement has a significant impact on a child's performance. If you are supporting your child and aware of what your child is learning, the evidence suggests that your child will improve their academic outcomes. Outlined on the slide below are a number of different ways for you to be involved in your child's learning. There are some obvious ones, such as encouraging them to do their best, but also supervising their work and making sure they're prepared for school, and asking questions about what they've learned during the day and during the week can have a significant impact on your child's development.
Hello, my name is Mr. Gregory and I'm the Director of Learning for Maths. In Year 9, each student will follow the same curriculum plan. They'll be exposed to different areas of mathematics from the number, algebra, ratio and proportion, geometry and measure and probably statistics units, giving them a good overview of the basis of the GCSE. At the end of Year 9, it will be decided which tier is most appropriate for each student. Although there is some flexibility throughout the Year 10 and Year 11, it is more than likely that this is the tier that they'll go on to study throughout the 2 years and will sit at the GCSE. In the foundation tier, it is possible for the students to get up to a grade 5, which is equivalent to a bottom end of a grade B from the old GCSE. The higher tier starts at a grade 3 and goes all the way up to a grade 9. The maths exam has no coursework element in it. It is assessed via 3 exam papers at the end of Year 11. For those students studying the foundation tier, they will do paper 1, paper 2 and paper 3. For those studying the higher tier, they'll do paper 4, paper 5 and paper 6. Each paper is 90 minutes long and there are 2 calculated papers and 1 non-calculated paper. The balance of the paper means that problem solving and reasoning within mathematics has become significantly more important than in previous years. It is therefore a focus of our lessons from Year 9 all the way through to Year 11 that we are looking at reasoning and problem solving on a regular basis and showing each student the types of questions that could come up after every single topic has been studied. The hope is that by the time they get to the exam paper, they are familiar with the types of questions that could come up and they are confident in answering those questions. In order to be prepared for learning, it is important that each student comes in with the equipment required to be successful in every lesson. On top of the normal equipment that's expected, each student should have access to a scientific calculator. A scientific calculator has the ability to do trigonometry, which normal calculators cannot do. So when buying a new calculator, it's important that you assess, first of all, that the calculator has the trigonometry functions. And you'll see this by the word sin, cos or tan that's written on the calculator. There is a preference that also a geometry set is purchased, but that is not given. We do have supplies of that within school that we can lend out, but owning your own geometry set will mean that the students have access to that at home as well as at school. And that will support their revision as they go through year 9, year 10 and into year 11. Homework is set weekly in maths. This is either done with the online resource such as MyMaths or MathsWatch, where students' work is marked instantly and they will get feedback straight away, or via paper, which will be marked in class, where teachers can go through misconceptions and support the students' learning. At the end of every half term, each student will sit an assessment, and again there will be a thorough feedback session where they will understand what they've done well in and what they need to do to improve. It is our aim in maths that every student is clear at what they do well in, and we give them regular feedback to aid their understanding of what they need to do to improve.
Hello, I'm Philippa Bingham. I'm the subject leader for English alongside Joe Collins, and the next few slides are just an introduction to GCSE English Literature and Language at Christ the King. So the English department follows the AQA specification for literature and language, and I've provided you with a snapshot here of our curriculum plan. So as you can see, it starts at the bottom with year 9 and it works through the different units that we study, the order that we study them in, just to show you the journey of the next 3 years. A popular question amongst Year 9 students is what texts will they study at GCSE? So this slide shows you the texts that we will study in class. So they are Much Ado About Nothing for their Shakespearean play, A Christmas Carol for their 19th century novel, the play An Inspector Calls for their modern text, and they also study an anthology of 15 poems, and we look at the cluster that focus on power and conflict. For English language, students don't study a particular text, but they will practice their reading and writing skills, making sure that they are reading for meaning and writing for a specific purpose. So there are 2 papers for English Literature GCSE. You can see on the slide that the first paper, students answer 1 question on Much Ado About Nothing and 1 question on Christmas Carol, and this is worth 40% of the final grade. And then paper 2 is slightly different. They will answer a question on Inspector Calls, but there are 2 on poetry. One of the poetry questions is from the anthology, and another is about unseen poems. So students will be given 2 unseen poems and tested on their ability to read and interpret and analyse poems that they've not studied before and show those poetic analysis skills. This is worth slightly more, 60%. Okay, and together that makes your English literature grade. So similar to English literature, English language also has two papers. So paper 1 is called Explorations in Creative Reading and Writing, and paper 2 is called Writers' Viewpoints and Perspectives. And the papers are structured in a very, very similar way, which is that they are split between a reading section and a writing section. It just has different focuses. Okay, so the first paper, the reading is based on a literary text. They answer 4 questions on that, and then they move on to a writing task, which is descriptive or narrative in nature. Whereas paper 2, the reading is on 2 non-fiction texts, one of which is pre-19th century. They answer 4 questions on that piece of reading, and then they move on to the writing, which is to present a viewpoint. So often writing from a certain perspective, like to persuade, for example, or to argue. So both those papers are worth 50%, and together they make up your English language grade. So finally we come to homework and revision. Homework will be set every week by your English teacher using a variety of platforms. So one is Educake, which you will have all had the login details for at the beginning of the year. This focuses on recall and retrieval. Another platform that we use for homework is Microsoft Teams. So assignments may be set on there. So you need to check those 2 platforms regularly to make sure that you are up to date. Also for revision, the English department always provide hard copies of booklets, etc. for key texts and sample exam papers, and we always make sure that resources are shared on Teams. So if you go into the files section, you will find everything there. If you have any other questions, please do ask a member of staff or myself. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Adam Blazovic-Bell and I am the Director of Learning for Science here at Christ the King.
Most students start Year 9 studying the AQA Separate Science course, which means they have the potential to go on and complete exams in all 3 science subjects and leave with 3 separate GCSEs, 1 in each science. The reason why I say most students start studying this particular pathway is because there are some students who are completing the ASDAN Science short course, and you will have received an email from me stating whether or not your child is on this particular course. Across each of the 3 separate sciences, there are a range of different topics that are studied to develop your child's scientific knowledge and understanding, as well as application of working scientifically, practical and mathematical skills.
Now, at the end of Year 11, your child will sit 2 exams in each science subject, a paper 1 and a paper 2. Both papers are 1 hour and 45 minutes long and are equally weighted. Now, studying separate sciences as opposed to the traditional double award or combined science gives us the added option of your child potentially sitting exams in 2 out of the 3 sciences. However, this is done in discussion with you and your child, and it is not an option that your child can pick. Now, as with all GCSE science courses, there are 2 possible tiers of entry, a higher and a foundation. This means that your child could end up sitting either foundation, higher, or a mixture in each of the 3 sciences. Now, this is really beneficial because as we know and as experience has actually taught us, some students will be more adept at 1 or 2 of the 3 sciences. Now, throughout the course, tier entries are reviewed based on progress in end of unit assessments and end of year mock exams, which are also tiered. And these are always done with your child's best interest in mind to ensure that they succeed and reach the highest possible grade that they can. However, those final tier entry decisions don't happen until Year 11. Now, all assessments and exams that your child will complete contain a range of questions from multi-choice, short answer and extended response, no more than 6 marks. Now, science is a practical subject, and even though there is no longer practical coursework in this subject, your child will complete 28 required practicals across the GCSE course. And it's the theory and knowledge of these practicals that your child will need to know about and will be assessed on in end of unit assessments and in their exams. Mathematical skills also play a really important part in science, and the math skills, which are no greater than foundation level GCSE maths, account for 10% of what is assessed in biology, 20% in chemistry, and 30% in physics. Now, the skills that your child will use in science will range from using fractions and ratios, calculating percentages, performing unit conversions, analysing and presenting data, and rearranging equations. There are actually 23 equations in physics that your child will need to know and learn. Now, bearing all of this in mind, it is absolutely imperative that your child has a scientific calculator with them at all times for their science lessons, but also knows how to use it. Now, as a department over the years, we've identified the 3 biggest challenges that we feel students face in science, and we base our interventions and support in class around how they can overcome them. This, however, involves input from your child outside the classroom as well as inside. Now, it is important that your child not only understands the meaning of different command words such as state, describe, explain, evaluate, etc. And these are skills that your child will develop throughout the 3 years of their GCSE. But it's important that they know how to answer questions that start with these commands. Now, this can be achieved by practicing lots of exam questions and familiarising themselves with the mark schemes. This happens a lot in class, but can be built on and developed at home. There is obviously a really big demand to learn not only different equations, practicals, unit conversions, keywords, facts and definitions. Science is a knowledge-based subject and there is lots of theory and application of that. So we do encourage your child to practice lots and lots of retrieval knowledge-based questions, which can be done using knowledge organisers, hard copies of which are given to your child, and topic checklists that are also given in class. There are some really useful websites such as quizzical.com and senecalearning.com that your child has access to as well. Now, as your child will be examined on content that they will have studied in year 9, at the end of year 11, it is imperative that your child revises and starts to develop these really good study skills and habits early on. And the best way in which that your child can actually revise is in bite-sized chunks. Little and often is best. Now, most of the home learning that we set in science is revision based to support your child in developing good habits when it comes to revision. Of course, your child is not on their own in this journey, and there'll be lots of interventions and support taking place inside your child's lessons. However, outside the classroom, revision must be proactive and engaging. Sitting down and making colourful mind maps and flashcards looks good, but doesn't help support learning unless they are used and referred to consistently over time. So without bombarding your child with lots of resources, we recommend the following. Number 1, accessing revision resources on Teams, as well as referring to and using the topic checklists in their books for each unit, particularly when it comes to revising for end of unit assessments. After assessments take place, whole class feedback is given to your child. Alongside that feedback that they are given, there are various tasks and targets that your child will be given to actually action, and it's really important that they go away and action the feedback that's given to them at the end of each assessment and mock exam that they complete, addressing those knowledge gaps sooner rather than later. The AQA website, which is free to use, will contain lots of really useful resources including specimen and past paper questions and mark schemes. If your child starts to familiarise yourself with those questions and those mark schemes, they start to develop confidence in answering exam style questions. There are some really useful video channels on YouTube. The free science lessons and My GCSE Science are a really good place to start. And what your child could actually do is actually watch these videos, making notes and developing their own mind maps and resources whilst they're actually engaging with these video clips. As I've already mentioned before, practicing lots and lots of retrieval-based questions is really important in terms of developing sound knowledge and understanding of the concepts that are studied. There are a couple of really useful websites, one in particular, quizzical.com, which is a random question generator, has lots and lots of practice questions that your child has access to. If you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to contact me on the email address that's given on this presentation, or to email any of your child's science teachers as well. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Lewis, the head of RE at Christ the King. I'm going to talk you through the course outline, assessment procedures and revision that your students will need for their study of GCSE Religious Studies. RE is a core subject at Christ the King, and therefore the GCSE is not optional. We follow the EDUCAS exam board, and our qualification is called GCSE Religious Studies Route B. In Year 9, students spend the first part of the course preparing for their GCSE by studying both philosophy and ethics. From around February half term, the students will begin their GCSE content with a study of the world religion Judaism. This makes up 25% of the overall GCSE content and is a separate paper assessed on its own. In Year 10, the foundations are then laid for the Catholic papers. They will study sources of authority, key Catholic beliefs, the problem of evil, eschatology, salvation and redemption, and the Catholic Church and others. This is followed in Year 11 with expressions of faith and beliefs in action, where students are able to study how the key beliefs they've covered in Year 10 apply to the Catholic life. GCSE Religious Studies is made up of 3 separate papers. These papers are not equally weighted, and this has been demonstrated in the table below. The Foundational Catholic Theology paper is worth 37.5%. This will cover the content that we explore in Year 10 and 11. It is an hour and 30 minutes and is made up of 96 marks. Applied Catholic Theology is 37.5% of the overall GCSE and is also 1 hour and 30 minutes, also having 96 marks available on the paper. The Judaism content is assessed in a separate paper. This is worth 25% of the overall GCSE, and the total time for the paper is 60 minutes with 60 marks available. Fortunately in RE, although there are a lot of exams and a lot of content to cover, the question types are consistent across all 3 papers, with students answering a Part A question where they will give a definition of one of the 8 key terms set for the papers that they have access to from the start of the course, worth 2 marks. They will be describing by demonstrating knowledge and understanding of a belief, teaching or practice, worth 5 marks. They will be explaining concepts, showing that they have a full and detailed understanding, supporting the statements with either reasons or evidence, worth 8 marks. And they will also undertake a larger 15-mark question which asks them to discuss different points of view on a statement. Students are provided with all the revision materials that they will need by the RE department. These are in the form of knowledge organisers, which contain all the key knowledge students will need for revision of content, as well as some practice questions. These have been put together by the exam board and are approved by them, and therefore are enough in themselves for supporting your students with revision. In addition, they are the materials that we use for homework from Year 9 through to Year 11 to support students in gaining the skills that they need for effective revision, and also to allow them to recall knowledge that they have previously learnt on a regular basis. There is a revision guide produced for our course, and some students may opt to also use this resource. It is displayed on this slide.
Hi, I'm Piers Baxter. I'm Assistant Head Teacher at Christ King School with responsibility for teaching and learning. Today, I'm going to speak to you about getting revision ready. This may seem a bit odd considering you've only just started your GCSEs. However, I want to talk to you today about starting revision early to A, reduce the pressures that revision can bring, but also to make revision much more effective. Before we start talking about revision specifically, it's important we have a brief look at cognitive science and how this relates to us remembering information. During a lesson, your teacher's aim is to transfer information into your working memory, and over a period of time, review that information so that it's transferred into your long-term memory. There's a huge amount of emphasis placed on the learner in order to support this, because it's important as young people that you're reviewing information and recalling information. This gives you the best chance of remembering core knowledge. Without this process, your brain is designed to forget information. Atkinson and Shiffrin produced a multi-store model about memory, and as you can see from the diagram, it's composed of 3 different parts. Short-term sensory store, which is information as we're taking it in there and then. Our short-term memory, or our working memory. And then finally our long-term memory. As I previously stated on the other slide, this transfer of information or core knowledge or skills is really important between short-term memory and long-term memory. This is where revision kicks in. It's really, really important that you go back and you rehearse information or you revise information in order to transfer it to the long-term memory. But not only that, you have to practice retrieving it from the long-term memory. The more often you do this, the better the chances that you can remember core information that's being given to you. So how does all this talk of memory link in with us in revision? The long and short of it is, you should be starting your revision cycle now. Revision isn't something that you leave until year 11 or a few weeks before you have a test. By starting it now, it allows you to do little and often. It also gives you the best opportunity to remember the core knowledge, skills, and facts that your teachers have told you. Revision should be planned, organised, and effective. And when you're building your revision timetable, it's important that you take into account activities you do outside of school for leisure and relaxation. These play a vital role in giving you some downtime during your busy week. Revision should include a range of content, from recent topics to topics you just covered throughout the course, or perhaps even topics you covered over a year ago or a couple of months ago. This is spaced retrieval. This will really help your memory in terms of recalling information. Another key point is if you struggle with a particular topic, keep coming back to it. There's a tendency for students to avoid the topics that they find difficult, because naturally they want to revise things that they could do well at. It makes them feel better. But you must face head-on those topics that you find difficult to give yourself the best opportunity to learn them better. Create a timetable as soon as possible to maximise study time. This is really important. We have examples of these in school. Please feel free to ask your teachers for one, or have a look on our website for an example of a timetable. If you get one of these filled in and it becomes part of your habits, then this is really going to help you with your revision. In year 7 and 8 at Christ the King, we use knowledge organisers to support our students with revision. You started this process last year when you were in year 8. It's important you continue with this as you move into GCSEs. Think about the techniques that you learned during your knowledge organiser homeworks last year. These can be used as revision techniques as you move through your GCSEs. Things such as flashcards, mind maps, self-quizzing and websites are all really useful to support you with your revision. Use these techniques, find out which work best for you, and all of this will help you with your revision techniques. Again, on our website, there's a knowledge organiser section which has videos explaining each of the methods. Go back and review them. Remind yourself of what you did in year 7 and 8. At Christ the King, we advocate a revision cycle for each block of revision. I've previously spoke to you about producing revision notes, whether they're in the form of flashcards, mind maps, quizzes, cheat sheets, or perhaps even revision clocks. The part of revision that students often forget about is the recall section. It's really important that once they've produced these notes, they're going back to them and they are recalling information from their long-term memory. You can support your son or daughter at this stage by taking an interest in the work that they've produced. Ask them questions about it, perhaps even design quizzes or get some past papers off the internet to support them with the recall from long-term memory. Other things you can do to help is to provide them with an environment which will support them with their revision, a quiet place to work. Provide them with highlighters, different colour pens, post-it notes, plastic wallets. All of these things will help them to organise and produce high quality revision material. At Christ the King, we run an after-school club, a homework club in the library, every evening. It's an hour after school, and I strongly recommend that you encourage your son or daughter to go there and start to revise. This will give them access to teachers who are still within school, but more importantly, or just as importantly, it will give them a place where they can work without distractions. It also frees up a bit of time so they're getting the work done at school rather than having to do it all at home.